There's this thing that happens. You get really good at your job, and I mean genuinely, measurably, undeniably good. Your numbers are clean. Your work is sharp. Your manager doesn't have to chase you. You deliver before deadlines. You fix problems no one asked you to fix. You become the person people lean on. And you think this is the path forward. You think this is what getting promoted looks like. It isn't. What you've actually done is built the most expensive kind of cage. Because being exceptional at your current job is quietly one of the most reliable ways to stay in it. This is the part no one prepares you for, not your manager, not HR, not the performance review where they gave you all 4s out of 5 and called it a great year. Nobody tells you that competence, real competence, can trap you, that the very thing you're proud of is the thing working against you. And I don't mean in a cynical, unfair, the world is broken kind of way. I mean structurally, mechanically, in the way that organizations actually function versus the way we're told they function. So let's talk about what's actually happening and why this matters more than most career advice you've ever gotten. Here's the first thing to understand. When you become great at your job, you become valuable in a very specific, very narrow way. You become load-bearing, like a wall in a house that wasn't meant to be load-bearing. But now, if you move it, everything shifts. Your manager knows this. Your skip level knows this. Even if they've never said it out loud, they feel it. And that feeling has a name. It's called replacement cost. When your manager thinks about promoting you, the first thought isn't great, they've earned it. The first thought, consciously or not, is who does this job now? And that question is genuinely hard to answer because you're not just doing the job, you're doing the job well. You've built the systems, you know the clients, you know where the bodies are buried, which projects are about to blow up, which relationships need handling. You're not just occupying a role, you are the role. And replacing you means finding someone who can do what you do at the level you do it without the years of context you've accumulated. That's a real risk. And managers are risk averse. Not because they're selfish, though some are, but because if the replacement doesn't work out, it reflects on them. The gap in performance, the dropped projects, the confused clients, all of that lands on their record. So keeping you where you are isn't cruelty, it's self-preservation. And it makes perfect logical sense from where they're sitting. What you feel is confusion. You're hitting every target. You're making their life easier. You're doing exactly what you were told success looked like. And somehow it's the problem. That confusion is real, and it's warranted. Because no one changed the rules. The rules were just never what you thought they were. Here's what actually happens when you're great at your current job. You get more of your current job. Not a promotion. Not new responsibilities at a new level. Just more of the same, repackaged to look like growth. You become the trainer for new hires, because who better to explain the job than the person who's best at it? Now you're doing your job and their job. You become the escalation point on the difficult accounts, the ones no one else wants to handle, because you're good under pressure. Now those accounts are yours forever. You become the person who fixes the broken process, and now you own the broken process and every future version of it. Your job expands, your title doesn't. Your compensation nudges up slightly, just enough to feel like progress, not enough to reflect what you're actually doing. And you stay, because you're good, because it's comfortable, because leaving feels like waste when you've built so much. And the trap closes. And here's the thing about this trap that makes it different from most career problems. Most career problems are visible. You can see them. Bad manager, toxic culture, wrong industry, no opportunities. Those are real, but they're external. You can point to them. You can name them. The trap we're talking about is invisible because it's built out of the thing you're most proud of. Your performance, your reliability, your results. Nobody sits you down and says you're too good at this job and that's why you're not moving. They say you're doing great. Keep it up. And you do. And nothing changes. And the years pass. You'll know. Here's the second thing, and this harder to see because it feels like success while it's happening. When you get really good at a job, you stop growing inside it, not because you've become lazy, not because you've lost ambition, but because you've optimized. You know the system, you know the shortcuts. You've figured out the fastest way to get the work done, the best way to handle the difficult stakeholders, the easiest way to hit the numbers. That efficiency feels like mastery. And in one sense, it is mastery. But mastery of a fixed system isn't growth, it's just faster repetition. Think about what this means over time. In year one, you're learning constantly. Everything is hard, everything is new, and that friction is producing skill. In year two, you're getting faster. Still learning, but less. In year 3, you're excellent. You're producing great results with less effort. That delta, less effort for better results, feels like progress. But what's actually happening is that your learning curve has flattened. You're not gaining new capability. You're just executing existing capability more efficiently. You're getting better at the job you already have, not ready for the one above it. And here's where it gets specifically painful. The skills that make you great at your current level are almost always the wrong skills for the next level. Think about what gets you recognized at the individual contributor level. Execution, reliability, speed, precision, knowing the details, delivering consistently. Those are real skills. They matter, but the skills required one level up are almost opposite. Strategy instead of execution, ambiguity instead of precision, delegating instead of doing, seeing across functions instead of mastering one. Companies assume you'll develop those upper-level skills once you're promoted, but they won't promote you until you're already demonstrating them. That gap, the gap between what your current job rewards and what the next job requires, is where careers stall. You can be a genuinely excellent performer and be completely unprepared for the role above you, not because you're not smart, not because you're not hardworking, because you've spent years sharpening the wrong set of tools, because nobody handed you the blueprint for what the next level actually needs. And by the time you figure it out, you've spent years getting faster at things that don't get you there. Now let's talk about something that happens quietly. Something that doesn't show up in your performance review, doesn't get documented anywhere, but shapes your entire trajectory inside an organization. The label. When you're great at your job, people start to see you as that job, not as a person with range, not as someone with potential across multiple domains. As the function, you become the Excel person, the ops person, the person who handles client escalations, the one who owns the quarterly report. And labels in organizations are sticky in a way that is almost impossible to overstate. Because organizations don't really see individuals. They see roles, and they slot people into them. Once you're in the slot, you are the slot. And here's the cruel part. Being great at the slot makes the label stick faster and harder, because every time you do the thing excellently, it becomes more evidence that this is who you are. You close the difficult deal, and now you're the closer. You fix the broken system, and now you're the fixer. You manage the difficult clients, and now you're the person for difficult clients. The organization's picture of you solidifies, and once it solidifies, it becomes almost impossible to change from inside it. Think about the meetings you're not in, not the project meetings, the succession planning conversations, the skip level calls where someone 2 or 3 levels up asks, "Who do we have ready for this role?" And someone in the room mentions names, and those names are the people with stories attached to them. Not the people with the best performance data, the people with narratives. She's been building cross-functional relationships all year. He ran that initiative outside his usual lane. She's been acting at the next level in everything but title. And your name? If your name comes up, it comes with your label. He's incredible at X. Full stop. No expansion. No narrative of readiness. Just the thing you're known for. That's not enough. And no one will tell you that's not enough. Because the feedback they give you is about the work, not about how the organization sees you. This is why people leave companies to grow. Not always because the company's bad, or the manager is impossible, or the culture is broken. Sometimes it's just because the company has already written your story and no revision is possible inside those walls. Sometimes the only way to be seen as something new is to go somewhere that doesn't have a story about you yet, where you can show up as a blank page and write something different. And that's genuinely painful when you've built real things there. When you have relationships, when the work itself is meaningful, when leaving feels like waste. But for a lot of people, the label is exactly what forces the decision. Not that the company was bad, just that it had already decided. And once an organization has decided who you are, it takes more energy to change that than most people have left after doing their actual jobs. Here's the part that took me a long time to understand. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Your silence is being interpreted right now, actively. Every week you show up, do great work, don't say anything about what you want, and leave. Your organization is updating its model of you, and that model says, this person is happy where they are. Not this person is exceptional and we should invest in them. Not this person is a flight risk and we should be strategic about their development. Just this person is fine, no action required. The people who get promoted are rarely the most technically excellent. They are consistently the ones who made themselves impossible to ignore. They talked about their work. They talked about their goals. They put themselves in rooms they weren't technically invited to. They made relationships outside their direct team. They asked questions in meetings that showed they were thinking one level above their current role. They said out loud, not defensively, not demandingly, just clearly, that they were building towards something bigger, that they were growing with or without this role. And that last part matters more than most people realize. Not because it's a threat, but because it changes the organizational math. When leadership thinks you might leave, you become a priority, not because they value you more as a person, but because losing you now means a real cost, replacement, knowledge transfer, ramp time, the uncertainty of a new hire. So they start thinking about you differently. They start asking what it would take to keep you engaged. They start thinking about development opportunities. They start having the conversations that move your career forward. And none of that happens when you're quietly excellent in the background. None of it. Because if they think you're happy, there's no urgency. And organizations are very good at ignoring what doesn't feel urgent. Promotion decisions, real ones, don't happen in performance reviews. They happen in succession planning conversations, in hallway discussions, in the 5-minute debrief after a leadership meeting where someone says, "We need to think about who's ready for this." And in those conversations, people are working from memory, from narrative, from impression. They're not pulling up your task completion data. They're asking who comes to mind. And if you've been excellent but invisible, you don't come to mind. You're a great answer to a question no one's asking. And here's something else that feeds this. When you're low maintenance, you become easy to deprioritize. The people who push back, who create friction, who express dissatisfaction, they get attention. Not always good attention, but attention. And attention is what moves careers inside organizations. Because attention creates conversations. Conversations create plans. Plans create action. But you, the quiet one, the reliable one, you don't get that. You're not a problem to be solved. You're an asset being utilized. And organizations are structured to allocate energy toward problems, not toward assets that are already performing. So the very quality that makes you pleasant to manage, your low maintenance reliability, is also the thing that removes you from the mental agenda of the people who could move your career forward. Not maliciously, just mechanically. You don't need anything, so they give you nothing. And the gap between where you are and where you want to be stays exactly the same size year after year, while you keep delivering and wondering why the promotion never comes. So what do you actually do with this? Because it would be easy and wrong to take from this that work quality doesn't matter. It does. You need to be competent. You need to be reliable. You need to be someone people can trust with real work. That's not the trap. The trap is thinking competence is the whole game. It's not. It's the entry fee. The people who consistently move forward are doing two things simultaneously. They're good enough at their current job, not spectacular at it, not going above and beyond every single day in every single way. Good enough that no one has performance concerns, good enough that the work gets done well, and they're spending the rest of their energy on everything else. Visibility, relationships, operating at the next level, learning the skills that don't exist in their current role. Here's the specific shift in thinking. Instead of asking, how do I get better at what I'm doing? Start asking, what does the job above me actually require? And am I building toward that? Those are very different questions. The first question keeps you excellent at your current level. The second question starts preparing you to leave it. What does the next role require that your current role doesn't? Strategy work? Start finding ways to be involved in strategic conversations, even informally. Cross-functional relationships? Start building them intentionally, not just when a project forces it. Managing ambiguity? Start taking on work where the answer isn't clear yet, even if it's harder and messier and less comfortable than your usual lane. And be visible about it, not in an aggressive look-at-me way. In a genuine, here's what I'm thinking about, here's what I'm working on, here's where I want to go kind of way. Have the conversation with your manager about what the next role needs and whether you're building toward it. Tell the skip level about an initiative that went well, briefly, directly, without apology. Build a relationship with someone outside your immediate team, not for manipulation, but because that relationship is real and it matters and it changes how people see you. Stop waiting for someone to notice. Start making it unreasonable for them not to. The other thing, and this one's uncomfortable for people who are proud of their work, be willing to be less good at your current job in order to grow into the next one. Not by slacking, not by dropping the ball, but by reallocating time and energy away from the pursuit of excellence at your current level and toward building readiness for the next. Because staying excellent at something that doesn't grow you is just a slower way to get stuck. Every hour you spend becoming incrementally better at the thing you already do well is an hour you didn't spend building the thing that gets you somewhere new. Let's be honest about what this costs, because I don't think people add it up clearly enough. If you spend 3 years being excellent at a job that doesn't lead anywhere, what have you actually lost? You've lost 3 years of compound career growth. You've lost 3 years of building skills that would make you more valuable at a higher level. You've lost 3 years of building relationships across the organization, of being seen differently, of establishing a narrative that puts you in rooms where career-defining decisions get made. 3 years where you could have been preparing for the next level, but instead were just getting faster at the level you were already on. And here's the thing about those years. They don't feel like loss while they're happening. They feel like stability. They feel like competence. They feel like the responsible, sensible choice. You're getting paid. You're respected. You're good at what you do. Your manager appreciates you. None of that feels like a trap. It feels like success. And that's exactly what makes it dangerous. Because by the time you start to feel stuck, you've been stuck for a while. By the time you realize the ceiling is right there, you've been bumping against it quietly for longer than you knew. And now you're the person who's been in this role for 4 years, which means you're the institutional memory, which means you're the hardest person to move, which means the trap is deeper and the walls are higher. Years you can't get back. Not because you failed. That's the part that stings. You didn't fail. You succeeded brilliantly at exactly what you were asked to do. You were excellent and reliable and professional and consistent. You did everything right, and it led you exactly here, stuck. That's the quiet cruelty of the trap. It only works on people who take their work seriously. The people who check out don't fall into it. Only the ones who actually care. There's also a version of this that's even harder to see. The version where you've been so good for so long that your identity has started to fuse with the role. Where being excellent at this job isn't just what you do, it's part of how you think about yourself. And that makes reallocation feel like a threat. Like admitting you don't care anymore. Like betraying something. But it isn't. Pulling energy away from the pursuit of perfection at your current level in order to build capacity for the next one isn't a character flaw. It's strategy. It's actually taking your career more seriously, not less. The version of you that keeps chasing another decimal point of performance at a level you've already mastered isn't being dedicated. It's being comfortable. And comfortable and growing are not the same thing. They feel the same from the inside. That's the whole problem. Here's what changes when you actually internalize this. When you stop treating competence as a strategy and start treating it as a flaw, you start making different choices about where your energy goes. Not less energy on the job, different energy. You stop chasing the highest possible score on work that doesn't move you forward and start investing in the things that do. You start thinking about visibility as a legitimate and necessary part of your job, not as something self-promotional or uncomfortable or somehow less pure than just doing good work. You start talking. Not performing, not bragging, just telling people clearly what you're working on, what you're building toward, what you want. That's not arrogance. That's just being a full participant in your own career. You start asking the questions that most people are afraid to ask. What would I need to demonstrate to be considered for the next role? What are the gaps between where I am and where I need to be? What does success at the level above me actually look like? Those conversations feel risky because they expose ambition. And somewhere along the way, a lot of people were taught that ambition is unseemly, that wanting to move up is somehow less noble than just doing good work. It isn't. Wanting growth is normal. Asking for it is professional. The discomfort you feel around those conversations is worth working through. And you stop waiting for a formal process to save you. The performance review isn't going to do it. The annual comp cycle isn't going to do it. The new HR initiative focused on internal mobility isn't going to do it, not unless you're already visible to the people making the decisions, not unless there's already a narrative attached to your name. Systems help people who are already in motion. They don't create motion from scratch. You have to do that part yourself. You have to decide that your career is your responsibility to manage, not your company's, not your manager's, yours, and then act accordingly. And you start being honest with yourself about timeline. How long have you been in this role? How long before the label calcifies completely? How long before being the person who knows everything in this lane becomes a liability instead of an asset? That's not paranoia. That's just strategic self-awareness. You can be grateful for where you are and honest about where it's heading at the same time. Those two things aren't in conflict. Here's what it comes down to. Competence is a baseline. It's the minimum required to be in the conversation. The people who move forward are the ones who figured out, often the hard way, that doing excellent work is just the first chapter. There's a whole second chapter that most people never open. And that chapter is about being visible, being known for the right things, building the skills for the next level before you need them, making your ambitions clear, and being genuinely willing to relinquish the comfort of being excellent at what you already do. The trap isn't that you're bad at your job. The trap is that you're too good at the wrong one. The trap is spending years building mastery over something that was never going to get you where you wanted to go. And the trap only closes on people who worked hard and cared deeply and thought that would be enough. It isn't. And once you know that clearly, you can start building something different. Because the goal was never to be exceptional at your current role. The goal was always to become the person ready for the next one. Those are different targets. Most people never realize that. And most people wonder why nothing changes. Now you know why. Stop optimizing for the job you have. Start preparing for the job you want. That's the shift. That's the whole thing. Everything else follows from that.